Week 18 is just around the corner, and in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the Week 18 schedule and my favorite stream options given the current schedule to hopefully maximize your games played and ultimately win your team's week. Now, when it comes to streaming, it's really contingent on how your matchup is the previous week. So for me, in a lot of my leagues, we have a certain amount of ads that you're only available for. So throughout the week, I'm adding players, but I'm still allowing myself to be able to add one player on Sunday, depending on how my matchup's doing. So for example, I'm up 50 points in one of my matchups right now. I have more games played today than they do, meaning I'll likely win the matchup. So this means that late Sunday night, I have one player left to add. So I'm going to be adding a stream player for next week, dropping the player that I streamed for the previous week, and that just gives me the edge. I don't have to force an ad early in the week for next week when I can use it in the previous week. I know it's a little bit confusing, guys, but I'll get into it a little bit later in this video. And without further ado, let's jump into the video. Maybe some of you listened to my rant at the intro, maybe some of you didn't, but it doesn't matter. If you've made it this late in the season watching these videos, you likely understand how streaming works each week. So this week, like I mentioned, it's a little bit of an odd week. We have off nights February 1st, 3rd, 7th, and 9th, with the first there being only one game. And there's 4 days this week with under 5 games and 2 days with 14 games. So it's a very, very heavy schedule for 2 nights, and the rest of the nights are pretty much wide open right now. So there's only one team with 4 games and 2 off nights this week is the Montreal Canadiens. So they're going to be the priority team. Now there's 3 teams with 4 games and 1 off night. We have the Senators, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Utah Hockey Club, maybe the Utah Mammoths at some point, we'll see. And then we have 3 teams with 3 games on 2 off nights, the Rangers, the Kings, and the Oilers. Like I mentioned, guys, it's a really weird week this week. There are only 4 teams with 4 games this week, and there's a couple teams with just 2 games. So you're going to want to make sure, especially this week, that you're maximizing your games played, especially if you have multiple players that have just 2 games played this week. Now, let's jump over to the forward streams. Not the most glamorous list of players here to stream going into week 18. Again, it's really tough to pick and choose when there's not teams that have good guys that are on like power play 1 or line 1 that are low ownership. But let's start it off here with the Montreal Canadiens. The team we're going to prioritize the most this week. And we have Kirby Dach, who is a center right wing eligible, so you get dual position eligibility, just 5% rostered, skating line 2, power play 2, averaging around 6 to 7 fantasy points per game in standard Yahoo category leagues. Now his games played this week, you want to prioritize both nights, the 5th and the 9th. Now the issue with the schedule this week is that if you stream him this week on the 4th and the 8th, you're likely going to have a full lineup and he's going to be on your bench. So you just want him for basically those 2 days on the 5th and the 9th. And the exact same thing here with Alex Newhook, who in deeper leagues becomes a more priority target than Kirby Dach. Both are likely available in 14, 16 team leagues, depending on how big your league is. Newhook may be a 20 team league type of stream here, but the same thing with him as it is with Kirby Dach. On the 5th and the 9th are where you're likely going to get the games played for them, not the 4th and the 8th. Now jumping over to the Ottawa Senators players here, again, there are a variety of teams that have just 2 games played this week. So all 5 of these players on screen right here, they have 4 games this week. So it still will maximize your roster if you do have players that are going to be off on those really, really busy nights. So Shane Pinto here, line 3, power play 2. I did want to include Josh Norris, but he did exit Saturday's game with an injury. So we'll have to monitor that. He would definitely be in the place of Norris or Ridley Greig here. But both guys, line 3, power play 2, don't have any power play 1 time, with the Ottawa Senators having a pretty set top power play unit, very, very similar to the Montreal Canadiens here. Now with Pinto here, and the opportunity for you to stream is you could get one of these Ottawa guys for the 3rd of February, and then quickly pivot away to the Montreal Canadiens guys, who you'll get the 5th and the 9th. So at least you'll have guys on 3 off nights. It's really contingent on how your roster will look this week in terms of players playing on the busy nights. And lastly, we have Nick Paul, center left wing eligible, 12% rostered. He's been very good over the last 30 games. For right now, February 9th is the priority day for him. Again, 4 games, but only 1 game on the off night, given this really odd schedule this week. So these are my prioritized forward streamers. Now let's jump over to the defensemen. Not a whole lot of good defensemen here, and personally I think Darren Radish becomes my target the most out of all these players, given he's now on pair 1. He's playing 20 plus minutes per night, and I do have power play 1 with an asterisk there, because go look on Daily Faceoff and check out their power play lines. It's all over the place. They have a power play 1A and B, and looks like Kucherov's playing both, similar to what we see with Ovechkin in Washington. But we also have Alex Carrier of the Montreal Canadiens, who will be the top choice. With Caden Gooley injured, it looks like Carrier stepped up into a pair 1 role, just 2% rostered, so he's likely available for you there. Artem Zub from the Ottawa Senators will be your priority target, another player that's going to be playing on pair 1 with about 20 plus minutes per night and very solid peripherals. Lastly, we have Michael Kesselring. Now, he was interesting the last couple of weeks with the injury to Mikhail Sergachev. Sergachev's now back in the lineup, so Kesselring's value drops considerably because of that. He's still playing a pair 1 role, very solid numbers. He's still putting up a decent amount of points this season for being a non-power play 1 defenseman. So again, the way you can look at this is you can get Artem Zub on the Monday, on the 3rd with the off night. There's just one game that night, and then quickly pivot, drop him at Alex Carrier for the 5th and the 9th, or at Darren Radish for the 3 remaining games, including the off night on the Sunday. It's very difficult this week. I think it's going to be more of a goalie prioritized week in terms of your streams, and that's a perfect segue into the goalie streamers for this week. So for the goalies this week, I try to focus more on the back-to-back nights where we can kind of guarantee when the goaltender will start. So right here with Jonathan Quick, we have the 7th of February versus Pittsburgh, and then the 8th at Columbus. Both are relatively the same matchups. I think the road game against Columbus will be a bit harder, so I can see Quick starting at home against Pittsburgh on the 7th, and then Shesterkin getting the away game in the more difficult matchup at Columbus, something we'll have to monitor later this week. With the Nashville Predators here, they play on the 7th at Chicago, and then the 8th versus Buffalo. I'm going to assume Noonan gets the easier matchup on the 7th against Chicago, and then they'll roll out Saros on the 8th in the more difficult matchup against Buffalo. Moving on to Montreal, I don't even know if Dobes is the starting goalie at this point. It's a little interesting to see what's going on between him and Montembeault, but he's been great at just 22% rostered. It looks like they have a little bit of a West Coast matchup here on the road on the 4th against San Jose, which is the easier matchup where he may start. And then they play on the road on the 5th against the LA Kings. And that's likely where Montembeault will get the start. Again, we'll have to monitor that later this week. And then lastly, we have the Dallas Stars here with Casey DeSmith at 7% rostered. They play on the 7th at LA, which is likely going to be Ottinger's start. And then the easier matchup, one of the easiest in the league, especially now that they traded Mikael Granlund, on the road against the San Jose Sharks on the 8th. So these are the goalie matchups for this week that have back-to-backs. I think this is going to be a goalie-heavy stream week for me personally, given that the players just aren't giving me enough games played, especially with the off nights. And typically what I do, if I'm not in categories leagues, if I'm in points leagues, I want to be getting goalies in good home matchups against easier teams. So for me this week, it's going to likely be a goalie heavy stream week versus the forwards or defensemen, but we'll see. I have 4 ads in my biggest league in the FPPL Division 2, so there's a good chance I'll stream one of the Montreal players and then just focus my last 3 ads on the week on goaltending. That will do it for the Week 18 priority streams video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. I did mention in my last trades video that I will be getting a Week 23 to 25 playoff schedule for players to trade for. I was sick last week, so I was unable to make the video, but this week I will be making the video, so stay tuned for that. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.